Carl, first to you, before we dig into some of the races across the country, let's talk about money. Here's what the president said about you Thursday.
In this Senate race, two groups funded and advised by Karl Rove have outspent the Democratic Party 2-to-1 in an attempt to beat Alexei. 2-to-1. Funded and advised by Karl Rove.
Now, the two groups are Crossroads GPS, 501c4 organization, and American Crossroads, a 527 group. Carl, your response to the president?
Well, first of all, the president's completely inaccurate. He said I funded them. I wish I had the billions of dollars that George Soros has that he has used to fund Democratic causes in the past. I'm helping both of these groups by raising money for them, as is allowed under the laws of the United States. American Crossroads is a 527. Crossroads GPS is a 501c4. The latter, the former reports its donors. The latter does not. The latter is like a lot of liberal groups, National Resources Defense Council, League of Conservation Voters, Center for American Progress, AARP, MoveOn.org, not report their donors.
Well, here's what Democratic National Committee Chairman Tim Kaine said. Responding to you, he released this statement, quote, despite multiple confirmed accounts of American Crossroads and Crossroads GPS being conceived in his own home, promoting the group extensively in the media and raising funds for it, Karl Rove claims that he is not helping to fund these groups. Mr. Rove has gone further and accused the president of being misleading. These are serious accusations that we would think Mr. Rove would be willing to back up with incontrovertible evidence. So your response to that?
Yeah, look, I am helping raise money for these groups, but there's a difference between helping raise money and funding these groups. The president left the implication in a speech on Thursday, and then in this speech, that I'm somehow taking a check out of my pocket and putting millions into these groups. I'm absolutely helping them. I'm doing everything I possibly can to raise money for them. In fact, if people watching this broadcast want to contribute, go to AmericanCrossroads.com and sign up for a contribution.
There's a lot of focus, Joe, by the president and others, Democratic leaders, on what he calls these shadowy groups. But unions and liberal groups are spending too. Daily Caller writes this: unions and liberal groups have said for months that they are spending what amounts to more than $200 million in this election cycle. An updated count, including a verification with major labor groups that their commitment still stands, shows that amount to be more than $250 million now. So is all of this Democratic focus on this spending a little disingenuous?
No, not at all. I mean, all these groups have been involved before. Labor, all the groups you just listed, and some of the ones that Carl listed. The difference this year is the amount of corporate money that's pumping into the system that we've never seen before. And also, now with the chamber, U.S. Chamber, there's even accusations that some of that money may be foreign corporate money that's literally funding some of these campaigns in independent expenditures. I think that's where that's going to be an issue, I think, going down through the November election now, is where's that money coming from?
Although the chamber denies that, and the New York Times wrote about the foreign money that they wrote, there's little evidence that what the chamber does in collecting overseas dues is improper or even unusual, according to both liberal and conservative election law lawyers.
Brett?
Their money. I mean,
Brett, it went further than that, Brett. The White House was unable to back up its charge that the United States Chamber of Commerce was spending foreign money on political activity. That's in the New York Times story yesterday. Look, this is a desperate political ploy by the White House.
The same New York Times.
This is a desperate political ploy by the White House to distract attention from the failed economic policies, from a jobless recovery, from the terrible economic news last week, and from the failure of the Obamacare proposal to gain popular support. And they're tossing out these baseless charges. The President of the United States accused the Chamber of Commerce and the Democratic National Committee in its new ad accuses Ed Gillespie and I of a criminal violation of our law by getting foreign money and spending it on American political campaigns, and they have not one shred of evidence to back up that baseless lie. This is a desperate and I think disturbing trend by the President of the United States to tar his political adversaries with some kind of enemies list, with being unrestrained by any facts or evidence whatsoever.
Joe, response.
I mean, look, the chamber in that same New York Times article says that they commingle the funds come from foreign entities, they come from U.S. companies, and then they only supposedly use the U.S. company money to influence elections. we don't know the
Joe,
proof of that.
they
But-
receive, Joe,
Let's
they
go,
receive,
Carl.
they receive $100,000 from American chambers of commerce abroad, and they very carefully, they say, segregate that money out of their $200 million budget, observing the U.S. laws that they can spend no foreign money on political activity, and they don't. And the President of the United States and the Democratic National Committee have no evidence to the contrary, and yet they accuse them of violating the criminal laws of the United States. Have these people no shame? Does the President of the United States have such little regard for the office that he holds that he goes out there and makes these kind of baseless charges against his political enemies? This is just beyond the pale. How dare the President do this?
Okay.